Good evening, gospel revolutionaries around this entire world. Thank you so much for joining me here on this Tuesday evening, a prequel, if you will, to the conference that's coming up and going to be in your mailbox very, very soon. It begins on Friday, and we'll go through the weekend. And if you've been getting the emails, you will get instructions as to how and when the sessions will be distributed. And it will be, it's set up to be distributed in different ways for different people. So those of you that want everything at once, you can have it. Those of you that want to go through the same process as we normally go through, as though we are actually physically there in Canada, with a Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday afternoon. I think we got an extra one in there somewhere. This one very well may turn out to be a session 1A as much as anything else. There's an avalanche of information that is coming to us, and I think there's a very clear reason why this avalanche of understanding is coming to us. It's called wisdom. It's called understanding. But you could make those statements around anyone. I mean, goodness, you can talk about wisdom of Confucius. You can talk about wisdom of anything, or any article, or any book, or understanding. But there is a wisdom and an understanding that comes pertaining to the gospel, pertaining to God and what he has done. God, isn't that a big word? Such a little word, such a big thing. And it's not as though we've been left without instructions about these incredible things having been written about very plainly. But one would think that we were left without any instruction, because everyone seems to think that it is okay just to develop your own doctrine, your own view, your own wisdom. Yes, even your own wisdom and your own understanding. What's about to happen to you as you go through this, whether you go through it quickly or slowly, and I think you're going to have to do both, very well could turn out to be a very monumental thing in your life. It has certainly been a monumental thing in my life and Daniel. And as we have prepared this and put it together, I can tell you before you ever start on Friday that one of the feelings that we have after having gotten together and doing the research, and been doing research for a long time, in some cases, a lot of this that you're hearing is research that I've done over the decades. And but a lot of it has come together. You'll hear that in the teachings that Daniel does. Even Ethan has done a great deal of work in this. We didn't get to have him here on camera, but Ethan is still very much part of the Gospel Revolution. And you'll be hearing more from him as he gets settled in his new digs out west. And the impact of the gospel in his life has been something that has should capture all of our imaginations, because of the profound way that the gospel has impacted this young man's life. There's been years and decades of learning and understanding that has gone into this conference that has come up. And, but what I really want to focus on, I don't know if this is going to be a 15-minute or a 2-hour and 15-minute. I'm just in a space and a zone of being attracted to this incredible thing called wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And what the scriptures have to say about that, and how wisdom is come about, how we access it, how do we follow it. Everyone would agree that whatever wisdom is, I need it. It doesn't make any difference what you are. It doesn't make any difference where you come from. If you're, a gay guy in Tennessee, or a wealthy person in Colorado, white, black, it makes no difference. Everyone knows that we need wisdom, and you'll either create your own and then create your own world, or you'll find out about the world that was created, that all of us can live in a wisdom that has been here from before the foundations of the world and before let there be light. So there are terms, if you will, that have developed in this understanding and the way of thinking that we do, and the way of understanding the scriptures as we do here at the Gospel Revolution. And some of those terms are things like context. Context wins the day almost every time. And there are other terms, and one is prototype. I remember Don introducing that to us pertaining to Christ. It was a bit rattling at the time, and I remember when Don first made the comments that he felt that Christ, Jesus, was our prototype. Yeah, I got a neighbor that loves his engine, so. The term that Don used, as I said, was a prototype, that Jesus was the prototype of what the whole human race, that was about to happen to the whole human race, that he was God and man all in one. And when we first began to embrace that terminology for trying to understand who we are, we found that it was extremely functional. And so functional that it opened up so many doors and is still opening up doors. The term paradigm is something that people will use. Well, you gotta look through this paradigm, or in this paradigm, or this field, like a field of vision. Ethan and I were talking about this term. It's actually field is actually a scientific term. And when you have a field in front of you, it can be corn or wheat, yes, but the field is actually a scientific term that talks about what is accessible to you. I should say it's a learning tool of science. And it's what's accessible to you from a certain position looking a certain way. And there's the terms frame of reference. Goodness, we could go on. The term lens, you got to look up. The thing that you want to do is, whatever you're using, you want the scope of it to be as wide as possible. The more narrow the scope, the more likelihood you are. If I did this and told you to look through this paradigm and tell me and describe Mike Williams, you would say, a white button. So what is Michael Williams? Well, if you look through a very narrow scope and you look through this lens, you'd have to say Mike Williams is a white button. No, I only have a white button on a red shirt. Then there's me. These things, contracting or expanding, can either add to or narrow your understanding to where you then have to become defensive of what it is that you are trying to convey. Now, when that happens, you begin to cut yourself off from other people that have other opinions and other views. Why? Because we fear. What do we fear? We fear being wrong. And that's something that if it's not gone altogether, I'm going to shake the rest of it off of me. And as much as possible is to be rid of the fear of being incorrect or being wrong. You remember as Don went into his comedy of this, trying to say the word wrong, and he just couldn't get the word out of his mouth. So, but I think what Don did is show us how difficult it is for a human being to say, I was wrong. And the fact that what we've learned is that you can actually fall in love with being wrong, because it's what you eventually find out was wrong that leads you to understanding what is correct as far as thinking or understanding any subject is concerned. The conference that you are about to get into is one that is very all-encompassing. It encompasses before God said, let there be light, all the way through the cross and Jesus saying it is finished. Because it wasn't finished. From the time God said, let there be light, you say, but it took 6 days. Well, that was 6 days and God rested. He didn't quit. How many of you know the difference between quit and resting? Well, God rested, and what he rested in, as I said, it didn't mean he quit, because Jesus said that he came to finish the Father's work. So whatever God started after he said, let there be light, and he created the sun, the moon, the stars, and all of this, that creation was not completely finished until Jesus said, it is now finished. And so what becomes imperative in our understanding is that not just that we know that that day on that street on Via Dolorosa, that Jesus carried that cross and he went there and he was tried, and then us trying to figure out the justness or the unjustness or who did it or who didn't do it. It is for us to understand those things, it is imperative that we back up and we see the bigger picture. Now, you went from looking at the button on my shirt to now you actually are able to see, yeah, well, Mike is there. Another thing that happens to be there is this little thing hanging on the wall here. I don't think I've ever pointed it out to you. But that is the certificate that I received and the declaration that I received from the state of Kentucky and from the city of Corbin, Kentucky. I was made a Kentucky colonel. So while Daniel calls me Captain, oh my Captain, you can call me Colonel. But I'm a colonel, just like, Johnny Depp tells you that he was made a colonel. He's very proud of that. And Colonel Sanders, we're that kind of colonel, not the military type. But it's true. I am indeed a Kentucky colonel. And I remember after my son was born, I've never really mentioned anything about it to people, but so much so that after my grandson was born and my daughter named him Corbin, and then after he was a year or two old, we were visiting and she was at my house. She's seen this before, and she looked up and her eyes got really big and she said, Corbin, Kentucky, what is this? How did you have something with Corbin's name on it? I said, honey, that's my certificate from Corbin, Kentucky, and the city and the state of Kentucky made me a Kentucky colonel from Corbin, Kentucky. And she was just blown away that name of that town and the fact that she had named her grandson, or named my grandson. It feels more like he's my son. Really hit her of the irony of that. And that's all it was an irony. There was nothing predestined. There was nothing that was done, that happened, that was made that some type of spiritual implication or foreknowledge. It just was a coinky-dink, and that's it. You'll find a whole lot of peace when you come to terms with coinkydinks. Maybe we need to do a whole session on coinkydinks. But when we have these terms of understanding, it does help us to, it helps guide us. It doesn't help us guide, it helps guide us. Context helps guide us to truth. And such as, now these are just terms of understanding. It's kind of like terms of endearment. You've heard that before, as a movie that Carol Burnett was one of the stars in many moons ago. Probably before I was a Kentucky colonel. And this movie, titled Terms of Endearment, brought a statement that has been around for a long time. But we understand terms of endearment. We know whether they are endearments or not. You know, as you get older and you're a Southerner, you know, I call everybody sweetie. I tell you, it's a little bit tricky when you're calling a 35-year-old man at the gym sweetie. But I get by with it because I'm an old man now. But these terms of endearment, people know whether what you're saying to them is endearing or insulting or whatever. And as terms of endearment, you know, cutie pie, sweetie, darling, all of these things, terms of endearment, you know, you're my little pumpkin, you're my whatever. These are terms of endearment. But what terms of endearment do is establish a environment where that you understand your relationship with that person. Terms of endearment help to establish that, unless you're using them to try to deceive the person. So I don't know if you've ever had that happen. I hope I haven't had it happen to me. But I'm sure that it could be that way, or it just becomes forced. It becomes something that you have to say because of its expectations. And those I don't like at all. I don't like getting stuck in something that is expected. And that it means something if you happen to not use that term. So there are, so like I said, this is, what you're about to hear is a contextual paradigm and a field of vision and a frame of reference to where that we can understand the prototype that Jesus became that concluded the entire creation of all things. I was on the phone just the other day with one of my friends, and he was telling me they've got a new telescope now that can see, they thought they could see 19 million years into the past, but voila, now they can see 29 million years into the past. No, they can't. The computer has been told to view something, and therefore the computer, within the framework of that computer, it creates an image based on the information it is given. But that doesn't mean that the information this computer is giving back is factual truth. Now that we've come into a computer age, many people make the mistake of thinking that just because a computer comes up with a result of something based on information that is fed to it, that indeed is a fact. And that indeed is not a fact. It is a possibility if the information given to the computer is correct. That's a big if. So probably one of the most dastardly things, and we've talked about this many times, is confirmation bias. It's so dastardly when even when you're using these terms of understanding, that if we get to the point to where that we have confirmation bias. What is confirmation bias? It means that once you see something, let me give it to you really simple, yellow Volkswagens. I remember one day somebody in the car pointed out, we decided to start looking at yellow Volkswagens. And I'm telling you, once we saw one, I would have to tell you that during the 1 hour drive that we had, that they created more yellow Volkswagens. Because this was what that we were looking for. It was something we were focused on, and it affected our ability to say how many yellow Volkswagens there actually are. There's no way we could determine that in our brief 1 hour drive, but it sure looked like a whole lot more than we ever thought, that's for sure. Confirmation bias, charts and graphs and things like that. Just because you look at a chart or a graph, there are interpretations to charts and graphs. And just because somebody shows you a chart or a graph, you're seeing a space of time that chart or graph is measuring from one point to another point. It's not measuring the whole thing. So you could be told that this chart and this graph proves this and this, and it may not prove that at all. But for people, I'll be able to blame Don for this one, the term intellectual laziness. He defined people that would not go out and look for the information that they need as just being intellectually lazy. And confirmation bias is just, it's just so easy to find. It's so easy once you want to prove a point. It's just so very easy to find what agrees with you. I don't care if it's your politics or whatever, or your beliefs. Finding something that agrees with you is like finding yellow Volkswagens. So you can find things that resemble something very much so. Obviously, this is going to go on more than a regular Tuesday night. I apologize or congratulate you, one of the two, for being a part of it. There are resemblances. Something can resemble something. You guys know that I am very much into DNA research and on a global basis and what that means. And we're going to be bringing that into the conference and to things that have been found through DNA that confirm the existence of mankind and how we got started. All of this has only happened in the last decade or so. As we've had chances to look at things, it's really funny because when you're looking for confirmation bias, once I find out that I'm supposed to be a descendant of so-and-so, I can look at a picture of them and it's like, oh, wow, look at the resemblance. And then I found out I wasn't related to them at all. At least not close enough for me to be so impressed with the resemblance. So resemblance can be deceptive. There are things that people call science that just is not science. We know that John Hagee got on and started talking about blood moons. And he's talked about it, and he'll talk about it again because blood moons still happen. Let me tell you what has never happened. The moon has never been blood red. It's never been blood red. That's an illusion. It's an atmospheric illusion that occurs under certain circumstances. If anyone, even the cameras on, and we've had cameras on the moon, if they had a camera on the moon or a person on the moon, when there was a blood moon, guess what? That camera would not see the color red, because that's an illusion created between where we are and where the moon is. So what effect does a blood moon have on the earth, or what does it mean? It means nothing, absolutely nothing. Now, one thing about the moon that is scientific, very much so, and I'm sure there's a whole lot of science about it, I don't know, is the gravitational pull of the moon. The gravitational pull of the moon affects our tides, and it's waxing and waning and all of that. You guys know about this as much as I do. I'm not a scientist about tides or tidal basins or anything. They're very interesting. It's very interesting to know how that the moon can affect us. And in this, as Ethan and I were studying in all of this, trying to look at the sciences and the so-called and pseudosciences that we think may possibly be pseudosciences, the difference between Newtonian and Einstein's theory is the difference in how gravity works. And Newtonian, Newton said that that the planet itself pulls, that there's the pull. Do you know that Einstein says that that gravity is pushing away, that it's pulling, there's something out here pulling up on us instead, to a certain degree, instead of the gravity is our own planet pulling. Well, if that's true, then what is affecting the waves? I mean, because it is gravity that is related to the moon that causes tides, but how can the tide be being pushed on instead of the pulling of the tides? So a lot of times there's really simple things that at least can put questions in your mind, and maybe that's not a complete answer to that question. But at least you ought to have the question instead of just listening to what people say. There's this thing called a planet being in retrograde. One of them is Jupiter. There's several, and you'll hear about them and probably have heard about them. And so what category does a planet being in retrograde have? Is it akin to the gravitational pull of the moon, or is it akin to a blood moon? It is akin to a blood moon, not the gravitational pull of the moon. The blood red is an illusion. Retrograde means to go backward. And let me assure you that no planet has ever gone backward. It's never stopped and gone backward. It appears to, because of the circles around the sun and the way that the Earth goes around and other planets, and the different time that it takes. Once a planet passes the sun, and we are looking, and we're going and around also, and once we pass a planet that is going slower, once we get past it, it looks like this planet is moving backward because it now tracks from where we are. It's tracking in our visual field to go backward. But let me assure you, there has never been a planet go into retrograde. It's an illusion. And just like John Hagee's incredible lineup of proofs of a blood moon and its effect, there are many people who have been told this, and I understand why they believe it, because it's presented as science. But let me assure you, there is zero science that's ever been presented about a planet being in retrograde. It just simply does not, it's non-existent. It is an illusion, just like a blood moon. You're not, if you were on one of these planets, you're not going to experience it going, all right, let's go the other way, and turn around and go back. So how could that affect us here on this earth. It cannot. There is zero, let me put it this way, there is zero scientific proof that it has any effects upon this planet whatsoever. And, you know, when Jupiter is in retrograde, they said affects our relationships and our emotions. And when I think it's Mercury is in, it affects our electronics. And, you know, it just makes you wish you lived, 2,000 years ago when it couldn't affect our electronics. But if you're looking for yellow Volkswagens and the effect of these things, you will find it. Now, so why bring up these things? Because these things resemble the truth, but they are not the truth. These things resemble what we think is science, but they are not science. There is science, and that's still, goodness, as Ethan and I have talked, I think there's things about gravity we still don't understand. And I think that we gave up on gravity because we accepted a pseudoscience of gravity when Einstein began to give us his theories. And those are unthought out, they're unproven. That's why they are called theories. The theory of relativity. It all has to do with gravity and many other subjects also. But please understand that these are all theoretical. These are not sciences at all. So now you may be mad at me because I might have touched on something that maybe you are just smitten with Einstein. But the thing that you have to understand is smitten or unsmitten, relativity is a theory. Also, evolution is a theory. It is not a science. And if you look at the science that we present to you in this, and now, like I said, I've just had this avalanche of science coming at me, because once we begin to look at it, we begin to see that there is such powerful understandings written in the scriptures about it. It's just been mind-boggling. I mean, just a few minutes ago, an entire chapter, Job chapter 28, if you want to go and look there. One of the most powerful illusions and very mistaken illusions, and boy, if I hadn't made you mad yet, this will, is that that God sent you here and your birth was predestined and your life came here with a purpose and a plan, and all you got to do is find that plan and listen to all of the talking heads. I mean, Tony Robbins, and then the list just goes on from there to the multitudes of men and women who are trying to help people find their destiny, find your destiny is to say there is one. And if it was destiny, you wouldn't have to look for it. Come on. Think. Destiny would be destiny. Oh, this was destiny. Well, this was just meant to be. Now, you can apply meaning to anything that happens to you, but nothing in your life was meant to be. Now, I've had a young man's life in my hands just by happenstance, by a chance meeting in a gym when he was 17. He's now 22. You've been hearing from him. And in that brief amount of time, and believe me, that chance meeting that we had those 5 years ago, it seems like it's been 6 months ago. And then on the other hand, it seems like I've known Ethan all of my life. But Ethan has known me more of his life than I've known him in my life. Boy, that's a scientific equation for you there. So the thing that has been amazing is in being Ethan's friend, and of course teaching him the gospel, and now learning the gospel from him. And we were speaking about this just last night, is that we went through this whole conversation is how amazing it is that we become so assured. He became so assured as a 17, 18. He told me about the years, the 3 to 4 years that it took for his mind to switch from this, and he could tell you the difference in the stability of his daily existence as this transition took place. And I made the statement to him again just to see, you know, is this a part of his reality? Is that he came here when he was born in East Tennessee, that there was no purpose, no plan for his life. He was not predestined to be here. It was chance that brought he and his mother together. It was chance of a certain egg and a certain sperm meeting together, creating a certain young man called, that they named William Ethan Massengill. Now, that is such a miraculous thing. Oh, conception and birth really are as close to anything that you would be called as miraculous. But since Jesus said it is finished, all of that now happens by chance and spontaneity. All of those terms now begin to come into play. Now, what that does, it does something to the brain. It does something to the way that you think. And it has done that to Ethan. It's done it to me. It's done it to many of you in the GR. But many people don't understand this and have not accepted it and still spiritualize. The people that we have lost over the years, and one of Daniel's close relatives, which was very much a strong part of the gospel and the gospel revolution, and declared openly that the teaching on the gospel of peace redeemed their life completely, brought them completely out of agoraphobia. And but now really has nothing to do and has embraced basically the sonship teaching that we have made reference to. Now, the thing that, and I've thought about this many times is, you know, number one, where are we wrong? I mean, are we wrong about what we're teaching? Am I wrong about what I am teaching? Are people not conceiving what is being said? You know, what is going on here? One thing, I don't know that it's a measurable fact, but the one thing that I've noticed of the people who've been able to move into some other form of spirituality is they could not let go of the spiritualization of everyday life. They have to believe that Jesus and God are doing this or that, or the parking place at Walmart, or boy, that was meant to be, and God just did this and God did that. Those people move on from us in this paradigm of thought. Now, why do they do that? They do that because there is an adjustment that has been done to their mind, that's how they make sense of life, whether it's right or not. You don't have to be right about how you make sense of life. Logic can be completely illogical, but if it's the way that you resolve problems, if it's the way that you can process and digest what's coming at you, well, that's just the devil. Well, you know, that's actually a form of logic to blame things on the devil. Well, this is God doing this and the devil doing that. I remember having that, and I told people that my whole life was like a paper in front of me with a dividing line. I made sure they saw the cross in my diagram. And on the left side, it says God, and on the right side, it's the devil. And I told people for decades that I could, every single thing that happens in my life, I can put in one column or the other. God or the devil. God or the devil. Now, did that give me some peace? Yes, it sure did. And did it give me fame? Did it give me fortune? Yes, it sure did. I taught on it. So I do know what that mindset is like. Did I benefit from it? Yes, I benefited from it until that line began to be blurred. And I could not say with certainty what was God and what was the devil. Because what began to happen was that certainty began to eliminate things out of my life and caused me to become uncertain about life itself, because I realized the way that I was approaching life simply did not work. This doesn't work. But if that's where you are and you're hearing what is being taught here at the Gospel Revolution, it is a huge thing to accept that you're not here by some divine purpose or providence. Joel Osteen will tell you every time you turn on the TV that that's the way it is. If you think that that's not the way people think, look at the size of his crowd and look at the size of mine. So what has happened to me and many others like yourselves is that we finally accepted this responsibility that if this life is going to have purpose, if it's going to have meaning, then I better get busy. I better find a purpose. I better make a meaning for my life. This is what I want my life to mean. This is the purpose. These are the things that I would like to do and be involved in, and to help people in this way or that way, or just consume your life completely upon yourself. It's completely your choice. There is not a reckoning day coming as to when you are going to be judged for those choices. I don't know what that has done for your life, but for me, it brought me out of, folks, first time I went in the mental institution, I was 15 years old, and I believed everything was a purpose. God did everything. God was in control of everything. And then and that was the Baptist that told me that God was in control of everything. And then the Word of Faith movement taught me that, no, Mike, we're so sorry you were misinformed. Sometimes God's not in control. Sometimes the devil's in control. Wow. So you see, that gave me a whole different unlearned and unrealized field of judgment to play in, or to exercise, or to try. But it certainly proved that what I had thought, that God was in charge of all things, I could see that proved that wrong. Now, what I didn't realize is that being wrong did not prove that God or the devil, one, was always in charge. So what has happened? A wisdom that we'll go into with you much more. And I asked Ethan yesterday as we were speaking, I said, and he was really caught up in what we were talking about. And he said, Mike, I am just, I don't even know how to describe what has happened to me. And he just got his first scores back from his first college class in English, which he hated, which he never made hardly passing grades in. Ethan thought he was stupid. Ethan thought he was incapable of learning, and he made an A+ on his first college class exam. And he just, because his mind was so stuck in this it's either God or the devil, the same that I was. But you see, that doesn't fit the brain. That's not how you were created, is for your brain to live in that environment. Now, what the brain, if God is a creator, then he is not just the creator of this and that and something else and something else and something else. He's the creator of all. Now, if he created all, then he created in where that it works or will work in a fashion that is somewhat predictable. What is predictable about the weather is that it's in conflict with the whole planet, but at times it can be at perfect peace. It's much like life itself. But Ethan was telling me, he said, it's so weird that I have no concept left in me that I came here with a purpose or there's a meaning for my life, and that all of this that's in front of me, that my field that's in front of me is by choice. It's by chance. And every day the possible choices switch. Not all of them, but some of them switch. And he said, then I have the opportunity to make different choices, which could take my life in a completely different direction. And as we were talking, you could just feel the empowerment of that and the wonderful detachment from this thought that that we no longer have it confused as to what part God was playing a role in and what part God is playing now. Does God play any part in our lives? He is our lives. It's not, he doesn't play a part. He's it. And we are it also. The scriptures, I could go into something else, but obviously this is an hour-long teaching today instead of just a Tuesday. But as we're coming up on this conference, I really want to encourage you that this really could be a very monumental moment. Very seminal moment is another term that is used a lot. In your life and in mine. And it has opened up so much that we now have this avalanche about this information coming in on us. And it's like it's all hands on deck. It's like we have to do the research and see where we start. Now, what separates the gospel revolution and this ministry and how we teach and what we teach? What is the thing that makes this different from all of Christianity and also from Global Grace conferences and Mirror Bible? And these guys I identify as mystic. They would not call themselves that, but I see them as mystic because of their personal revelation thing that they have going. They think that there's personal revelations, personal insights, that Jesus is speaking to them individually about an individual thing, and that they can know things that nobody else can know. Some form of that. I don't want to pretend to even try to diagnose that at all. But what is the difference in what you hear here and what you hear in any Baptist church, Pentecostal church? List the the 46,000 denominations that, according to a certain research group, exist out there. List all of the other religions of the world. What is different about this, and why is it that this conference has the potential of having a monumental effect in your life? There are several places, I'll wait till another time to go into these verses, but it becomes very clear that according to the scriptures, in the book of Psalms, in the book of Job, in the book of Proverbs, that wisdom is the beginning, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Also, one says it is the very first steps of knowledge. That it's the fear of the Lord is the beginning. Now, one thing that I started saying a couple of decades ago is that, yes, it is true. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but it's not the end of wisdom, because in Christ Jesus, God hath made unto us wisdom, righteousness, sanctification, and redemption. So the fear of the Lord still has wisdom in it, in the fact that you have to know what that fear produced and why, and what its function was. Because there's no reason to be afraid of God anymore. There is no reason to be afraid of God anymore. Was there a point to be afraid? You're going to find scriptures that say a man's a damn fool if he's not afraid of God. And that's saying it lightly, just as to say that a man's a damn fool if he doesn't know the fear of God. And when it uses the term fear, go ahead and search it out. It means fear. It means, but it also says that if you understand the fear of the Lord, you're going to be delivered from the fear of evil. That means things can come at you every day from out of nowhere, it seems. But you deal with it. Why? Because you know it's not the wrath or anger or judgment or correction of God, but that fear, that anger and wrath and judgment and correction had its place to bring us in a completely covered up plan that God had to bring us to the fullness of creation at the cross. So, and why do we say then that what we teach now is completely different from all of the denominations of Christianity? It is different because we acknowledge the entire Bible. There's not a place that doesn't talk about the anger and wrath and judgment of God, the jealousy, all of this. It may tick you off about a certain story or something, but that doesn't mean you should throw the entire understanding of the fear of God or the wrath of God out the door when you're throwing away a huge percentage, more than 50% of the entire Bible you'd have to throw away to get that out. But I remember when I first started teaching the gospel of peace and the gospel of grace, the thing that was confrontational or new for everyone is that nobody had ever heard that a once angry God was now no longer angry at anybody, and all because of the work of the cross. And I went into extensive research and detail to explain why a once angry God is no longer angry. There's thousands of hours of teaching on it in our website, and you're welcome to it. The other part of this, which was brand new to me, was this whole new, and many of these folks came out of understanding the gospel of peace. I know the groups they came out of. I don't know all of them, but many of them that are of the more mystic persuasion, the aforementioned, they now determined that God was never angry, because how foolish. They think that's destabilizing somehow for people to think that God was ever angry, that Father God was never angry. Well, the fact is they're right. God was never angry with a son, but we did not become the sons of God until after the first and only begotten prototype, as Don introduced us to that word. And now it is true that, and the father-son relationship, Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. That's all true. But you see, he was talking to people who were in the image of God, and were creations of God, but they had no sonship. So now we've got a group that have seen the importance of sonship to the point where they think they don't have it, and they're pursuing it, trying to manifest, taking verses completely out of context altogether, and creating a struggle. Well, what happens? Folks, if you don't have the fear of God in its proper perspective, in the process of creation and the finality of the work of the cross, you are going to fear evil. You're going to dread life. You're just going to dread life. Instead of understanding, it may come flying at you sideways tomorrow or in the next minute. But there is peace about it. And you'll deal with that when it comes and if it comes. But it most certainly, most likely will come in some form to you in disruption of life. But the thing that gives the brain stability and the mind and the heart to become stable is the absolute understanding of what that is not. Your checking account isn't the devil robbing you. The diagnosis is not God is not protecting you. That all of these things. And once we have the fear of the Lord being the beginning of wisdom, then understanding where that fear fit in the entire process of creation to the final creation. You know, I want to say bring it on, but I don't want to do that because I don't want anybody bringing it on, because it doesn't make any difference. Even if I said bring it on, it's not going to cause something to happen. There's people so afraid of their own words. People say, oh, I'm empowered. The power of life and death is in my tongue. And what does that do? You're afraid of what you're saying. Oh, don't say that. Oh, no. Folks, I went through all that. It doesn't create power. It creates fear to think that the power of life and death are in your tongue. And in the context of even those verses, we've taught on that. I'm not going to go back into it again. So what I wanted to share with you in this pregame show is that what's about to happen to you really could be very monumental. Because in its feeble attempt, if one might call it that, in its directness, even though there's a lot of information going to be missing out of this, it has the ability, what is about to happen to you, has the ability to have all of the entire universe and the way things were created to match up with your brain. The way the stars are, the way everything is arranged, how God created the heavens and the earth. And gosh, we're going to go into so many subjects. I want to go ahead and go teach them to you now, but I'm withholding. In fact, I'm withholding about 3 hours of teaching from you right now that I would love to go into. But we've got to absorb this first. And then I promise you we're going to go into more things. So the context of truth, the paradigm of Christ himself, the reference point, the field of vision, or the field of you know, they had a movie out, The Field of Dreams, you know, and folks, if you can see from where you are a field, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or actually, you can operate in that field, even if it's one you've created in your mind, until it breaks down. Just like a field in front of you. You may think, well, look at that. That's just nothing but wheat for the next 3 miles. Well, once you start running through there, you could step into a big crater and fall about 10 feet. Because in that field of vision, you can't see all of it. So my goal here was not to ramble, and I don't think there's a part of this that I would go back and take out at this moment. But it is important to understand why this ministry teaches what it teaches, how we understand what we understand, where we think the wisdom comes from to be able to teach it. We're no smarter than anybody else. I'm a high school dropout, folks. But I'm absolutely convinced that as the truth of creation matches up with the truth of the existence of the created, and now the creator also, all in the human race, that the ability to face life in a whole different paradigm, a completely different paradigm. We've got a 22-year-old who knows, and he is persuaded, right or wrong, he is persuaded that he came here with absolutely no purpose, no meaning behind it whatsoever, except life itself, as grand as it is. In fact, all the things that he was taught about that paralyzed him from being able to live his life. And now all, if not almost all of that is gone. All, if not all of that in my life is gone, ready to remove the rest of it because it can stick around, folks. It can stick around. And when life does come flying at you, that old mindset can try to come back and say, oh, that's because of this or that, or, you know, well, this, wouldn't you know it? This always happens. I could have told you this would happen because this, that, and the other. Folks, all of those things are destabilizing. All of these pseudosciences are not good for the stability of the mind and the emotions or the brain. They are not. They just simply do not stabilize at all. True science agrees with the scriptures. The scriptures taught the science before the scientists knew it. You're going to find out about a lot of that. God, I just went through a whole chapter that describes creation in its extremes as to how God purposed all of this. We go into detail and teach you. I just went through verses that I didn't even know were in the Bible about God having purposed the time when rain would start on the earth and when thunder and lightning would be seen for the first time. And very clearly tells us that's not the way things started, though. Thunder and lightning were not a part of the Earth's atmosphere until after the flood or during the flood. And again, you're going to see that we go into, you know, why did we pass over that the way God symbolized that this would never happen again was by putting a rainbow in the sky? Well, see, that's a scientific term. The fact that there's a rainbow that's in the sky means that there is an atmosphere that exists where that's not possible to happen anymore. The scriptures are smart. I'm just following along. And so now you need to start fasting and praying and getting ready for this conference. And you know that we are not advocating that. We do thank you for everything you've done to be a part of this. But I want you to know that some of you are going to decide during this time what you're going to do to support. Many of you may decide to stop supporting this ministry because of the things that you learned. Some of you are going to decide to start supporting or even increasing that support. And if you do, though, we want you to know clearly what it is you are supporting. and what it is you are promoting by offering your dollars to help us do what we are teaching. We're not trying to teach this. We shared a story with you the other day where that Daniel was in a meeting and was asked, the gentleman who was offering the Mirror Bible said he had called Francois directly to say, are you actually teaching that nobody's going to hell and everybody is in? And he told him no. So he was not completely forthcoming about what was in his Mirror Bible. But we don't want to do that. I want you to know that whether this is in our favor financially or against us financially, that's not the determining factor in what we teach. The thing that is the determining factor is we really want to know the truth. You say, well, Mike, what is the difference between your pursuit of truth and anybody else's? I don't know completely, but I know in myself that if I'm pursuing truth so I can be healthy, if I'm pursuing truth so I can be wealthy, if I'm pursuing truth so God can find me a parking place at Walmart, if I'm pursuing truth because I want my life to go well, then I am not pursuing truth at all. The one thing that I've understood about truth is that if you're going to pursue it, you must pursue it for the value of it itself. This incredible Job chapter 28. Job chapter 28, my gosh, I just read through that. And it gives all of these incredible comparisons and this insight into creation. We are probably going to add on some other sessions at the end of this. We may do it just as follow-ups. We've been doing all of these teachings of Christ. Boy, I hope you've been enjoying these. Every one of them that we've done, I have learned things about the teachings of Jesus. In all 25 or so, we've still got almost 25 left of the teachings and the commandments of Jesus. And the thing that that we are considering is possibly putting that on hold because we're just in such a download. It's time and money, folks. We just gosh, if I could match Daniel's salary where he is working and get him into this full time, I would do it. But we just simply have to face the facts as they are. We really care about how your life is going. I personally really do think about many of you throughout the week and the months that go by. And many times the thoughts that go back to certain moments, many of you hold a place, a huge place in my mind and in my thoughts. But it may be just from a snapshot in my brain. But those little snapshots of points and places in time mean something because I've met a lot of people in my life. And but there's hardly any of you that I don't know. And the ones I don't know because I haven't seen you, I know because of the communications we have. Enjoy the conference. This has been one incredible Tuesday night 15-minute video. So I'm glad that I did the disclaimer at the first of it. And I really am looking forward to hearing what you have to say about what we have to say, because that's what it's all about.